Hello, and welcome to our Introduction to IT Project Management course. We previously discussed project management and some of the various methodologies associated with the practice. In this video, we are going to give an overview of the phases of Waterfall Project Management, as well as an overview of Scrum artifacts and events. We will dive deeper into each phase, event, and artifact in the subsequent videos. In this video, we will be covering the phases of project management in order: initiating, planning, executing, controlling, and closing. Starting off with the initiating phase, we will also be including project artifacts in our discussion. When we discuss closing in the last video, we will also talk about project artifacts that relate to the project post-mortem. The agile components of project management that are used in this model feature heavily in the planning, executing, and controlling phases. Speaking of our model, let's take a look again. Here's our hybrid project management model with the 5 phases of waterfall project management cascading down from upper left to bottom right. The agile artifact, user stories, is woven into the planning phase and is utilized while being modified in the executing and controlling phases. The Scrum events are utilized in the executing phase, and the controlling phase takes user stories and uses that as an input. So let's talk about initiating. Most projects start off with a request or a suggestion for the project to be completed to add some value to the organization. Oftentimes, the project will be a direct request or a suggestion from a stakeholder, and the Project Management Institute defines a stakeholder as individuals and organizations who are actively involved in the project or whose interests may be positively or negatively affected as a result of the project execution. After a project has been approved by the powers that be, you will want to kick off the project. Typically, this is a meeting to introduce the project to the stakeholders and set expectations. Oftentimes, you will review a set of project artifacts in this meeting as well. A project artifact is simply a document or deliverable relating to the project. Artifacts are really the star of the show in the planning phase. The main artifact in the planning phase is the project Gantt chart, and this is essentially an overview of the entire project with each phase and task broken down line by line. There are a number of tools available to use and create and manage Gantt charts, and we will discuss the components of a successful Gantt chart in another video. One of the unique aspects of hybrid project management is the inclusion of user stories in a Gantt chart. In strict waterfall style project management, a Gantt chart is comprised of phases, and each of those phases have sections and tasks. In hybrid project management, we're going to use user stories in the place of tasks when it comes to the execution phase. A user story is a formulaic way to represent the end goal of the effort completed by the project team, rather than the task itself. We've already seen this portion of our hybrid project management diagram as it flows from the planning phase and feeds into the executing and controlling phases. This is the cycle of Scrum events. While some of these events can be modified or combined in various ways, the core aspects of each event should be included in the execution phase. These events include backlog combing or grooming, as it's sometimes known, sprint planning, the Daily Scrum meeting, and the Sprint Retrospective and review. Technically speaking, the Sprint Retrospective and Sprint Review are separate events, but oftentimes are combined into a single event that covers topics from both events. Now note that this is a cycle, and this cycle repeats several times throughout the execution phase of hybrid project management. While the work is being completed, a project manager's job is to control and monitor the work being executed on. You may have heard the phrase on time and on budget being thrown around with regards to project management. These two aspects are some of the most important aspects when it comes to project management, especially for the controlling phase. The individuals working on the project also need to be managed, as well as the components utilized in the execution of the work. The individuals and components are often referred to as resources. In a field like construction, this would include staff on the job, machinery to complete the job, etc. In the information technology world, it is mostly comprised of the individuals completing the work, but development environments and systems that are being used should also be included under resources. The scope of the work simply refers to what is included as part of the project. Items that are not included are referred to as out of scope. Budget, time, resources, scope, all affect the quality of the work that is being completed as well. The relationship of these variables will be discussed at length in our video on the controlling phase. The last phase of Waterfall Project Management is closing, and the length of this phase can vary wildly from project to project. Depending on the size of the rollout or areas that the project should be deployed to, this phase may actually make up the bulk of the project. After implementation or deployment, reporting to stakeholders should be conducted. This can come in the form of a simple status update or can involve complex analytics reporting. Lastly, a post-mortem is an exercise that involves reviewing what went well and what didn't go well in the project. In this video, we covered the 5 phases of project management: initiating, planning, executing, controlling, and closing. We also discussed the standard Scrum artifacts and events that are interwoven into Waterfall Project Management to create our hybrid project management model. The main artifact being a list of user stories, and events comprising the backlog combing or grooming, sprint planning, the daily Scrum meeting, the Sprint Retrospective, and the Sprint Review. In the next video, we will begin our deep dive into each of the 5 phases, starting with initiating. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.